Welcome to another episode of Mark's Fishing, and welcome to my endless pursuit of eliminating line twist on my spinning reels. I can't tell you how many different videos I have watched, how many methods I've tried. Label side up, label side down, on a pencil, flip it over halfway through. No matter what I've done, I've always ended up with some amount of line twist on my spinning reels, and I could never get my head around it. I just never understood how these videos, who seemed to have such authority on what was going on, they just didn't seem to work for me, and I wondered if they worked for anybody. Well, it's taken years, but the penny has finally dropped, and I finally know what's going on. And in this video, I'm going to tell you in an authoritative sense exactly how to spool line on your spinning reel and what's going on with line twist on your spinning reel. And the most important thing to understand to start with is that line twist is part of the line on every single spinning reel. It's actually how a spinning reel works. When you take your spinning reel and it's bringing the line in as you're turning the handle over and it's winding it, the bail is winding it onto the spool, that line is coming in and being twisted onto the spool. So there will always be line twist. The important thing is to know where we want the line twist. Line twist in a spinning reel is completely unavoidable. It is part of the way the spinning reel works. So the important thing with line twist is to make sure we have the right amount of line twist and we have it twisted in the right location. Now let me just show you with this spool of 100-pound braid as an example of how a spinning reel works and compare it to how a bait casting or conventional reel works. Now a conventional reel, the spool sits like this and the line comes directly on and off the spool by the spool rotating. So that line is straight, there's no twist in that line, and the spool brings it in like this, no twisting, and then the spool lets it out like that. Once again, no twisting. If that line is straight now, it's going to be straight when it goes on the spool, and it's going to be straight when it comes off. But that's not how a spinning reel works. A spinning reel sends out line like this. And if you see, as I take the line off this spool, the line is twisted. It's coming off the spool twisted. That's how a spinning reel works. So there's always line twist. The important thing with a line twist in a spinning reel is to make sure that when we cast it out, the line twist is there when the line is out. And then when we reel it back in, it actually takes that line twist and untwists it and lays it flat on the reel. So that's what we want to happen, but how do we achieve that? Now, one thing that you often hear, in fact the most common advice I hear, is you take the spool and you lay it label side up or label side down, or so that the fishing line is coming off the spool in the same direction that it is going onto the spool of your spinning reel. And that makes sense. That's actually some pretty good advice. But there's one bit of difficulty with that advice, and that won't always work, and it really never works perfectly. The line is coming off your spool, and of course it's twisted. And then if you reel it on to your spinning reel, onto the spool on your spinning reel, in theory that should untwist it and lay it flat on the spinning reel. But that only works perfectly if the size of your spinning reel spool and the size of the spool that your line is coming off of are the exact same size. If the spool is larger, which it almost always is, you will have additional line twist added when going on the spinning reel. And that's because this spinning reel probably has to turn 2 times to get 1 coil of line off this spool. And that can be even more extreme with larger spools. This is quite a tight, small spool. But in larger spools, it can be even more extreme. And what that ends up happening is you are still adding line twist to your line that you do not want. And that line twist will be seen on the reel itself. You will see the line is twisted on there. This is what causes wind knots, this is what causes tangles, this is what causes decrease in casting distance. This is line twist that is twisted on the spool. We want the line on the spool to be completely flat. We want to see the line twist when we cast, and in the line that is out. We want to see that line twist because that's the way the reel is designed. And then when you reel the line in, it takes that line twist out and puts it back on the reel completely flat. Now, if you buy your line and your reel at a tackle shop, the easiest solution is to have them put it on your spinning reel with a line spooler. And what you will find is at most good tackle shops, you buy the line or the reel, or you bring them your line, you will be able to give them your reel. They will take the spool and they will put it in a machine, generally that has two little rubber ends that holds your spool, something like that. And then they take the line you've got and they put that in a feeder. They wrap it around there and then they feed the line on, much like a conventional reel would take line. They can feed it from your spool of line onto your spinning reel spool. And doing that makes sure that it ends up completely flat. They'll go back and forth, they'll fill it all the way to the top, and I think if you have that option, that is my #1 choice for making sure that you don't have line twist on your spool that causes problems. Have your local tackle shop spool your spinning reel. But that's not always possible. And when that's not possible, I found something that can do that for us. And it is the most bizarre looking thing, of which is called a line spooler. And what this thing does is it holds your spool. I'll just hook this up here. It holds your spool in place while you wind the line on to your spinning reel. Now, if you just had it like this and you were winding it directly on, what would happen is this line would go onto your reel straight and your reel would take the line in and twist it. That would mean that the line would be twisted on the spool, which is not what you want. But what this device does is as you turn the reel to bring the line onto the spool, it spins. And it spins at the exact rate of which your spinning reel is turning. So it adds the line twist, the exact amount of line twist needed to make sure that when it gets on to your spool, it is flat. I mean, it is the most bizarre looking but incredible device. And I'm going to put a reel on now and I'm going to spool some line on for you and I'm going to show you exactly how that works. All right, I've got that all set up ready to go. The reel just sits in a reel seat just like it would on your fishing rod, and I've got the spool in here which is able to rotate to add the proper amount of line twist that we want so it sits flat on the spinning reel, and then we just turn, and that's it. And that line, that spool, is spinning at the same rate that the bail or the arm of the spinning reel is. And it's just laying the line on there perfectly flat. I mean, I know it looks pretty absurd when it's happening, but it's actually quite an amazing invention. We just keep turning until the spool on the reel is full, and then we go fishing. I'll put a link in the description down below for the line spooler if you're interested in getting one for yourself. Other than that, any questions you've got, go ahead and put them in the comments section. I'm happy to answer any and all fishing questions. No problem with that. Thanks for watching. See you next video.